And a group of people known as the Bean Dogs kind of worked for this other dude who I think was, not sure exactly what his name is, but it was like something like a Neil Rauhauser, I think, is the way it's pronounced. But I could be wrong. It could have been somebody else. But this is about the time that everybody was breaking the Brett Kimberlin story about the convicted terrorist known as a Speedway bomber who now is deep into lawfare and political activism. And they started writing about that, and suddenly the bloggers who were investigating this and writing about this started getting swatted, usually by some unidentified minor who was calling and faking it. So the person doing it was under the age of 18, hoping that they could get away with whatever because they weren't legally an adult. And they got so bad that Eric Erickson, who's been on television news type cable news networks of various types, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, whatever. Eric can give you his own resume of where he's appeared. But Eric Erickson is also on WSB out of Atlanta, a radio station, and he's filled in on the golden microphone for, of course, Rush Limbaugh a couple of times. Well, even Eric has been swatted. And luckily, the police officers responded. One of them kind of knew Eric and walked up and did a very calm knock on the door, checked things out. And Eric was sitting at the dinner table with his family when this went down. So luckily they didn't actually swat him where they blew in his door and went charging in, because quite probably somebody would have gotten hurt had they done that. And it probably could have been one of Eric's children getting hurt by the police officers doing that. So this is really a serious thing. It's a crime when people do this swatting, folks, because if a real incident goes down while the team's taken up going after one of these pranks, number one, that's not cool. It takes away assets from where they're potentially needed. Number two, this is a weapon. When used, somebody could potentially get hurt. And of course, that's why they do it. They want to see somebody get hurt. They get off. They get pleasure out of watching the police be used as a weapon to kill their opposition. And that's what they're doing, folks. That's why I said they're evil. They legitimately want to harm anybody who thinks differently from them, anybody who dares to have an individual thought. And now, it's not just the political activists that are doing it. You have online gamers doing this to each other. They're sitting there playing violent video games. Folks, we already know that violent video games can have some ill effects, or at least are linked to. There's correlation, although we don't have direct causation per se, but between both depression and tendencies towards violent outbursts and lack of anger management and anger control and impulse control coming out of teenagers who play violent video games. Well, now you have these kids playing these violent video games online, and they are going against opposing teams in these live games. Kind of like playing paintball, only it's on a computer, and you're sitting on your butt instead of actually going out there and getting exercise. I mean, if they played paintball, it might be a little bit different, because then they actually have to use muscles and use their brains, and would actually feel it when they get hit with a paintball. If you're not padded up right, it really welts you up. Smarts. But anyway, they sit there and play these video games all night long in their parents' basement or what have you. How their parents let these, teenagers play these games all night long, I don't know. But they do. And they get jealous if they lose too many times to a different team, so they'll do what they can to hack in and look at the IP addresses and stuff like that and find their opposition's locations. And in the middle of their little online games, they'll SWAT each other, which is a serious thing. Like I said, folks, to look at somebody getting hurt. Well, I wrote up. It was a fictitious story about a person named Paul Horner, who, I don't know if there's really such a person, but by that name, but the character in the original story was fictitious. A fictitious 15-year-old who was supposedly sentenced 25 years to life for 2 acts of domestic terrorism when he did a swatting. Now, 25 years, folks, is a little bit steep. What made the story believable is that when you do swat somebody, you are committing an act of terrorism. You really are. You're using legitimate police forces. You're first terrorizing them into acting as your weapon. And then when you do that to have them act as your weapon, you're attempting to intimidate, extort, or otherwise silence or scare or change the legal actions of somebody by taking illegal actions against them and threatening them with harm or jail or death or what have you. And that is terrorism by the very definition of it. So could somebody be sentenced for terrorism, for swatting? Yes. 25 years to life? No. Maybe a 5 to 10 year sentence, out in 3 to 5, and it'd be a felony conviction and all that goes with it, with a lengthy probation afterwards. Sure. Put some 15-year-old in jail for for 3 years until he turns 18 and is now legally an adult. Have it be a permanent, open felony conviction, meaning it's not sealed because they're a minor. It's open. It shows up on background checks. Let them live with that, and then have them also undergo a good 10-year probation afterwards. So technically they're still under a sentence for an additional 10 years. So now they hit 28, 29 years old, and it won't impact them for the rest of their life, but there'll be several things that they'll have to give up, and they'll always have eyes on them for certain things. And they'll have done it to themselves, and hopefully they'll learn their lesson. And if that happens to enough people, hopefully the lesson kind of goes out there. But I don't know. The kid in Hackers, no, he didn't go to jail. I mean, had he gone to jail as a minor, in that little preview of that, instead of just, the way he was arrested, he actually spent some time in jail, then perhaps that the movie wouldn't have spawned as much activity or increase in people wanting to go and be hackers. So maybe what it takes is somebody being set as an example. And, even though this is a fictitious story, maybe there's just enough truth behind it that maybe it'll kind of sway some of these little bratty, violent terrorist jackasses from doing something so vile as swatting. I don't know. What are your thoughts? We still have a couple minutes left on the show, like about 10. So go ahead and give me a call here at 520-226-8567 if you're listening live, which I know a couple of you are. Now, on the flip side, if you're listening to the podcast, go ahead and leave comments at the bottom of the blog spot where the podcast is posted, or on the YouTube channel, which of course is under Mental Aikido. You can go ahead and look and do a search for MMRS. It's hashtag MMRS, and it should pop up, or Matuszak radio show. And which you've probably already done. If you're listening to this, go ahead and leave comments beneath their questions. And like I said, if I see your comments or questions, I will be sure to attempt to address them on the air. Like I said, this show is rated PG, not PG-13, but PG, and that's for my name, Paul-Gregory, not for parental guidance. We try to keep it somewhat family friendly, at least on the words we use to discuss things and how we discuss them, although the topics may not be all that kid-friendly. There's some things our kids, they'll get enough of as adults. They just don't need that now. They need to enjoy being kids. But speaking about parental guidance, we have a little parental guidance, so to speak. Yesterday, folks, I played the audio from Julie Borowski, for those who don't speak Slavic languages, from her latest video, which dealt with the color-changing nail polish that could detect date rape drugs. And I also played the latest from FreedomWorks about Common Core, which, just to remind you what that one sounded like, the Common Core commercial.
The new school year is just around the corner. Government bureaucrats are about to force millions of American children into Common Core classrooms. Our children will no longer learn traditional math and American history in their classrooms. Even worse, our children's information is going into a government database. Their test scores, height, weight, and more. Go to freedomworkscommoncorefails.com website today and download the action plan to stop Common Core and Obama's progressive allies from ruining our education system. Get the plan today at commoncorefails.com and take a stand for America's next.
And folks, I'm going to have that action plan hyperlinked over at my Blogspot account where the podcast is playing. So you head on over there, and I'll have it linked over there for y'all if you don't want to go to Common Core Fails itself. But no sooner did I play both that and Julie's latest thing from her own channel when she did something up for FreedomWorks from her show with FreedomWorks called Real Talk with Julie, where she talks about Common Core. So here's another little dose of Julie Borowski, this time talking about Common Core.
A new Gallup poll shows that most Americans oppose Common Core. Awareness for Common Core has skyrocketed over the past year, and many people don't like what they see. Opposition to Common Core isn't really a partisan issue. Republicans are more likely to oppose Common Core, but even about 40% of Democrats do too. Among independents, about 60% oppose Common Core. The most common reason people gave for opposing Common Core is that it limits teachers' flexibility in the classroom. Under Common Core, teachers have less of a say. Teachers should have control over their classrooms. They certainly know better than a federal bureaucrat. Maybe this is why support for Common Core is slipping among teachers. A recent Education Week poll shows that only 53% of teachers support Common Core. Now that's a significant decline from last year's poll. Another common reason people gave for opposing Common Core is that it's initiated by the federal government. The ultimate goal of Common Core is to have every school district in the entire nation follow the same uniform standards. It's a one-size-fits-all solution that doesn't work. Americans largely oppose the federal government intervening in local school systems. 56% of people say that local school boards should have the greatest influence in what is being taught. Few said the federal government should, and for good reason. Local communities know how to better design standards than people in Washington. Alright, so we get that many people oppose Common Core, but now what can we do to stop it? Well, I'm glad you asked. Please visit commoncorefails.com. That's commoncorefails.com, and you can sign up and get a copy of the We Will Not Conform Action Plan. This document will teach you how to push back on Common Core in your communities, in your neighborhood, and in your states. Check it out. This is the time to get the federal government out of local schools.
Hey, so how about that double dose of Julie Borowski? Well, folks, it looks like we actually have our first caller to the show. So let's see what our first caller has to say.
You just hate Common Core because you hate our children. Our children need to learn everything we tell them. They need to sit back and not have minds of their own and just do what they're told and be good little citizens and grow up to be a good Obama lovers. You just hate Common Core because you hate children learning what we want them to know instead of what they need to know. Goodbye.
Well, how's that for another country heard from? Yeah, folks. Whoever that was, that anonymous number, I knew I should have known better for somebody who's too cowardly to let their number show up. But, yeah. How about that? I just hate our children. That's why I want to rescue them from revisionist history, if they learn history at all. And from newfangled ways of doing math that don't necessarily give you the right answer, instead of the tried and true ways, which get you the right answer. Yeah. But anyway, like Julie mentioned down there, as well as the other ad I played earlier, we've got we will not conform action packet. We'll have linked for you, and of course that we will not conform. It's being offered up by FreedomWorks, but it also goes hand in hand with what Glenn Beck was doing. So, I don't always agree with Glenn, with Mr. Beck. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It kind of depends on the topic and the thing he's doing. But he's got something going here with this anti-Common Core thing. And folks, he lives in Texas. Common Core is against the law down here in Texas. So it doesn't stop certain aspects of it. But technically, it's illegal down here in Texas. So his kids aren't subject to it. His workers' kids aren't subject to it. So why would he care so much? Well, folks, because he sees how much of a danger this is to our nation and to our children and to the rights of good parents out there. And folks, despite what teachers try to tell you, you're not partners in education. You are not the teacher's partner in educating your child. The teacher is your employee who you hire and pay either through your taxes or tuition to educate your child. They are not your partner. They do not raise your child with you. They do not raise your child for you. It's another thing where people are too dumb or too lazy to raise their own children. They expect the schools to do it for them. They educate your children. They're your employees. If they're not doing their job adequately, fire them. Period. You say, well, I can't fire a teacher from the school. True. But you can pull your kid out of the school. You can homeschool. You can put them in a charter school. You can bust your butt and pay for them to go to a private school. There are other options there. You can also go in front of your school board and tell them they're jacked up. Don't be chicken. Do it. They're your kids. You are responsible for your children. You're responsible for their upbringing. You are responsible for their education, their growth, the opportunities that get availed to them so they can prosper and succeed if they so desire to put forth the effort when they're older. It's your job to set them up for those successes if they choose to go after them, to pursue those happinesses. Your job, not the teachers. The teachers are your tool to do so. And if a tool doesn't work properly, what do? You throw it out. Get a new one. Get one that works or works better. Well, that's my 2 cents on that for today. Go ahead and check out that commoncorefails.com, which also links over to both the FreedomWorks and to Glenn Beck's site for We Will Not Conform. Go ahead and check out what they have, see what they have to say, make up your own mind, and take control of your own lives and your own decisions in setting up your children for those successes. Remember, teachers and schools are not your partners, they're your employees. They're just trying to take that larger role and trying to tell you what to do. You could tell them to go and lick your left kneecap and make your right kneecap jealous. Well, that's my 2 cents on the problems with education in our country, folks. So without further